I've taken all the ornaments we created in the previous videos and I've put them all together in a single max file. And this is going to be our working library. I also added a few more leaf models, which can be made using the same techniques as I've demonstrated, just to make this library a bit more versatile. And the way I use it is I have all these models. You can see that I have not collapsed the modifier stack, so I can easily just go in and modify them. I'm going to take them, I'm going to copy them down above my reference image, and I'm going to combine them, modify them to create a slightly more difficult piece, like this example here. So even though it looks like it has all sorts of different elements that are quite different from what we have here, we can easily recreate it by using these pre-made parts. Alright, so the way it works is I start by taking a leaf. For example, I want to start with this leaf here. I look at my library and I try to find a leaf that is similar to that one. And I think it might be this. I'm going to make a copy, position it in place, scale it up, make sure it is sized correctly. Alright, so that's close enough. Now I'm gonna go back to my edit poly, a level below turbo smooth, and I'm gonna slightly move some vertices to fit the reference better. And that's the great thing about this library. All the models are uncollapsed, they have these low poly versions available for modifying, and you can easily just, for example, extend it over here, make it a bit longer, change the curvature a bit, and basically get exactly what you need from these pre-made models. So even though it's not a perfect match, I think it's going to be good enough and nobody's going to know the difference once we have finished this whole thing. Alright, so as you can see, I took that leaf and I modified it to fit the reference a bit better, and it looks pretty good, pretty close to what we have here. And for a production environment, this is essential that you can take some pre-made models and throw them together quickly. And otherwise you would spend days or at least many hours for creating some simple models if you would model everything from scratch. So I took the next leaf, I'm going to scale it up. So let's say it's going to be over here. Rotate it like that. And just move some vertices around to make sure the curvature is nice. Okay. And let's scale this smaller, since we don't want this part sticking out. And it doesn't matter if it's not perfect over there, since that part is not seen at all. It works quite well over here. Alright, so let's select this part, scale it a bit down, and blend it in like this. As you can see, we have combined two models to create a larger leaf like this. It looks pretty good, and if you look at it from the distance, it looks great. Okay, next up, I'm gonna make a copy of this leaf. I'm gonna use it over here. And even though it's not a perfect match, that's alright. It's gonna look pretty good. Okay, so the curvature is a bit wrong at the moment, but that's why we have this low poly version available, so we can easily modify it and make the curvature fit the reference exactly. Alright. And it doesn't really matter if the tip is a bit different, as long as it curves the right way and looks good. Again, I want to emphasize that you do not want to try to achieve perfect results, as doing so would take you too much time and it's just not feasible in a production environment. If you're making some personal pieces, sure, go ahead, spend days or weeks or even more time modeling this, but since we're usually working for clients and we have deadlines, it's much more reasonable to use some pre-made parts to quickly put something together that is similar to what we need to model, even though it's not perfectly the same. So the whole process is like this. You just select pieces, modify them. And for this I'm actually going to delete those and remake that part by extruding some edges. And it's quick and easy. Okay, the most important thing is to get the overall shape right. So the shapes are smooth and the curves are looking good, and even though the leaf is a bit different, it's not too important. Alright, so let's add some more detail here. Maybe let's use this one. Make a copy. Scale it up a bit. And let's straighten it out. And then scaling some pieces, some parts of the ornament down. What you want to do is you want to make sure you select this scale gizmo like this. So this long straight piece is yellow instead of the small triangle. And this way you're not gonna mess up the proportions or in this case the depth of this part. You're just scaling it on the Y and on the X axis. If you would scale with this triangle, you'd also scale on the Z or the depth axis, which is not something you want. Okay, and make a copy, rotate, and like that. That's fine. Right, so now let's look at this curving element. And it seems like it is pretty much repeated over here, just as a mirror image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one of them and I'm going to mirror it over here. So looks like we can start with this piece. Just have to mirror it around. Okay, so something like that. That's close enough. Let's adjust these vertices over here. I'm going to delete everything above this point. And again, using the Shift plus Move extrusion method, I'm going to quickly create the rest of this curve. Sometimes it's easier to extrude instead of try to modify the vertices to fit. And that's probably enough. Maybe just one more. And I'm going to scale this down a bit. Right. Now let's go ahead and add the small leaf on top here. And it seems like the best one to use there is. Okay, let's hide it for a moment to see. It's pretty simple. Right, it looks like actually this one is also useful over there. So let's flip it around with the mirror tool. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to delete this part. Let's scale this down a bit. And rotate, position. And from the perspective view, I'm going to slightly rotate it outwards like this. And that's fine. And from a distance, you're not going to see that it's overlapping or it's not perfect. It doesn't really matter. Looks good enough. Okay. So let's select this piece and mirror it. Make a copy. And let's move it over here. All right. Here we need to make a few adjustments. And I'm going to do it with this element here. So we want to move this part outwards. And we want to move this part inwards. So it sort of goes over the top here. Makes a nice 3D effect. Okay. So next up, let's make this leaf part here. I'm just gonna copy this one, rotate a bit. Scale a bit smaller. Looks okay. Take one of these pieces, flip around, scale larger, position over here, and just end it up behind the other leaves. And actually we can just get rid of these parts, since they're not going to be seen anyway. We can just as well save some polys. Alright, so that's nice. Looks like we have to select this part and slightly move it outwards. You can use the soft selection for some smooth transitions like that. It works well with moving and rotating. Okay, looks good. Looks like we have to dip this part over here to make sure it's inside of the other leaf. Okay, looking good. So next up we can select these parts and probably just mirror them to the other side to get some quick results. Okay, some slight rotation. Adjust some of the vertices. And like that. Alright, so for this center part, looks like we have to use the line tool to create a new element. I'm just gonna give it a rectangular profile, or actually a square profile. Collapse to editable poly. And just scale some parts up and some down to create something similar to the shape in the reference image. And just throw in some turbo smooth and it's good to go. Alright. And for these leaves over here we can probably use maybe this element. Let's make a copy. It's not exactly the same, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to use an FFD modifier to slightly change the overall shape and proportions. So in this case this part is smaller. It's a bit longer overall. And start from there. Okay. So reference doesn't really have the center part, but that's alright. We're gonna have to live with that. I think it fits well here. Okay, looks like I messed up this. A bit too much. Okay, close enough. Alright, starting to look good. Maybe let's add some more elements here. This leaf is a bit denser. Maybe let's add some segments here to make the curvature smoother. Okay, good. Looks like we can take this piece and copy it over here. And it looks fine. And if you look at it from slight distance, you can't really see all these little problems we have here. It doesn't matter at all. Right, next up, let's make another copy of this. Move over here, let's maybe move it outwards. Rotate a bit. And move some of the vertices inwards. Like that. Looks nice. Good. Let's move on. I'm gonna take this leaf, copy it over here. Flip it around with the mirror tool. Scale it up a bit. And delete everything until this point. It's just gonna be easier to extrude these edges. Okay, looks like we deleted a bit too much. So I'm gonna delete up to this point. Since there was a split in the middle there, I just decided it might be better to get a section without the split for extruding. And just keep on extruding until you meet up with a place where you can hide the end. And you can make it slightly thinner along the way. Okay, that's good. Let's copy this element over here to the other side. All right. Let's extrude this as well. So that's looking good. We can add a small scroll over here. I'm just gonna use this simplified version. Actually, let's use this one. Okay. I'm gonna get rid of that symmetry since it's not really needed over here. And just scale it smaller. And make sure it blends with the leaves well. Okay, move it in. Looking good. And that's nice. And finally, we just need a few leaves over here and a small element over there. So for that small element, I'm going to copy this one. Just scale it a bit larger. Maybe move some vertices. Okay, good enough. And finally, let's add this leaf over here. And we can probably use maybe this one. So just make a copy, flip around, scale a bit larger. And adjust the overall curvature. Okay, and over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this end. And I'm going to close up this this part here. And to do that, we're going to select these edges. And Shift plus move them to extrude. Like this. To match and the rest of the geometry. Okay. And using target weld, we can close this up easily. And over here we can use the regular weld tool. And that's fine. Right. And finally one more element over here. Make a copy of this leaf, rotate up, and I'm not gonna make the center part since it's probably had to be made from scratch, and I just wanted to show you how to use these elements. Maybe let's add a scroll there. Or a shell or something. Just gonna hide the reference and well, let's say we're gonna start with a nice shell over there. And let's start with a scroll head. Okay, let's take the shell, move it in place. And we finally want to add one more thing. And one more leaf. Just to cover some of these rough connections. Alright, like that. And just move it outwards. And move the tip inside the scroll. So all the seams are nice and covered. Maybe the shell is not the best example here. Let's try this one. Okay. And as you can see, you can create very complex looking elements just by combining those simple library models. Maybe let's throw in a little flower or something over there. Okay, so that's about it for this demonstration, and I hope you learned how you can create ornaments of any complexity just by starting with these simple working library models.